This man controls 1.4 billion people. He commands the world's second superpower and changed the laws so he could rule until he dies. Yet, 50 years ago, he was a prince who lost everything and was exiled to a remote village, lived in a dark dirt cave and shoveled manure just to stay alive. So how did a boy living in a hole in the ground become the most powerful man on Earth? June 15th, 1953. Xi Jinping was born during one of history's strangest political experiments. 2 decades of fighting had just ended. Communists, led by Mao Zedong, won. And Xi's father? He was one of the founding fathers. Xi Zhongxun had fought since age 15, led guerrilla armies, earned Mao's trust through blood. When the smoke cleared, he became vice premier, part of the inner circle ruling 1/4 of humanity. Young Xi wasn't just born into privilege, he was born into royalty, communist royalty. He grew up in Zhongnanhai, a guarded compound in Beijing where China's leaders still live today. Special schools where only elite children studied. Life was good, comfortable, protected. But communist China in the 1950s was paranoid. Stalin had just died in Moscow, leaving a power vacuum. Mao was obsessed with ideological purity. And the party elite, those revolutionary heroes who'd fought the Civil War together, were now fighting each other for power. Then 1962 happened, and the comfortable life ended. His father made a mistake, or more likely, he fell into a trap. Xi Zhongxun approved the publication of a novel called The Biography of Liu Zhidan, a seemingly harmless story about a communist revolutionary hero. But Mao decided the novel contained hidden criticism of his leadership. Overnight, Xi Zhongxun went from revolutionary hero to political criminal. The family was kicked out of Zhongnanhai. His father was banished to a tractor factory in a distant province, forced to work as a common laborer. 9-year-old Xi learned his first rule of power. Loyalty expires the moment it becomes inconvenient. But that was just the beginning. 1966, the Cultural Revolution. Mao, feeling threatened by his own government, unleashed absolute chaos. He mobilized the youth into Red Guard units to destroy the old world. Teenagers became judge, jury, and executioner. They beat teachers, denounced parents, and tortured intellectuals. Because his father was already a traitor, Xi was labeled a black element, the lowest social class in China. Red Guards descended on his home like locusts. They smashed heirlooms, burned his father's books, destroyed everything. His father was thrown into prison. His mother was dragged onto a stage for struggle sessions, forced to publicly denounce her husband while crowds screamed at her. Xi had to watch. His family paraded through the streets in dunce caps, spat on by people who used to bow to them. The pressure was designed to break spirits, and it did. His half-sister couldn't take it anymore. The humiliation, the terror, the constant sessions. She chose to silence the noise of the revolution forever. In 1969, the order came. Xi Jinping was being sent to the countryside for re-education. Translation: exile when he was 16 years old. You've enjoyed the city long enough. Now you will learn what it means to be a real worker. What? Where are you taking me? 1969, Liangjiahe village, Shanxi province. A privileged Beijing teenager, used to hot meals and indoor plumbing, dropped into a village so remote it made the middle of nowhere look cosmopolitan. The landscape was brutal, carved into yellow loess hills. No electricity, no running water. Xi arrived with nothing but the clothes on his back and a suitcase of worthless books. His new home? A yaodong, a cave dwelling dug into the hillside. Dark, damp, infested with fleas that left his skin covered in red welts. His new job? Carrying 200-pound loads of manure up steep hills. 12 hours a day. The first months were hell. His hands bled from the work. His back ached constantly. The food was barely edible. Corn mush and wild vegetables. He cried himself to sleep. And then he tried to escape. Under the cover of a moonless sky, Xi snuck out of the cave. He trekked miles through jagged canyons, dodging patrol flashlights, heart hammering. All it took was one small slip, and Xi would quickly become a data point in a death registry. To keep your own data point, you can use Okara. When you're researching sensitive geopolitical topics like this, you realize how much of your data is being tracked. Most AI tools, ChatGPT, Claude. They're training on everything you type. Your research questions, your drafts, all of it. Okara is different. It's an encrypted AI chat that gives you access to 30+ open source models. DeepSeek, Llama, Qwen, all in one place. Your conversations are encrypted and never used for training. It's privately hosted, so when I'm working on videos about surveillance states, I'm not feeding my research into someone else's AI model. Plus, you can switch between models mid-conversation without losing context, which is huge when you're doing deep research. If you care about privacy while using AI, especially for sensitive work, check out Okara. Use code Crayon Capital for 30% off. Link in the description. Successfully, Xi snuck onto a train, hiding in shadows, heading to the only home he knew, Beijing. But when he arrived, the home he remembered was a trap. He was walking the streets, a ghost in his own city, when a heavy hand clamped onto his shoulder. Papers. Now, I'm just visiting family. You're a sent-down youth. You're a deserter. And just like that, he was sent to a detention center. For months, he dug. Sewage trenches by day. Then came the nights. Endless study classes where interrogators circled like wolves, demanding confessions of wrong thinking. He had to renounce his father's crimes publicly, prove his loyalty to Mao's party again and again. It was in that cell that something hardened. He realized there was no home to go back to. Beijing had chewed him up and spat him out. You have two choices, princeling. Rot in this hole, or go back to the dirt and prove you're a real communist? Send me back. He threw himself into the work. Manic intensity. He stopped complaining, stopped looking for the horizon. He became the village's problem solver. Then came the biogas project. We need to build a methane digester for cooking fuel. A what? We fill a pit with manure, seal it, and trap the gas. No more hauling wood. We'll have fire from waste. It's a waste of time, Beijing boy. Xi designed it himself, studying by oil lamp late into the night. On the day they finished, the pressure built up, but the pipe clogged. Xi jumped into the pit to clear it. The pipe burst. A fountain of filth erupted. Look at you, covered in it. It doesn't matter, look at the gauge. The pressure is holding. 3 weeks later, the digester worked. For the first time, the village had gas for cooking. The boy didn't even wipe the shit off his face. Just picked up the shovel and went back into the pit. That was the moment that we knew. He was him. But leading a village wasn't enough. By night, he studied the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital, not as schoolwork, but as a manual for power. He had mastered the mud. Now, he wanted back into the party. There was just one problem. The party still saw him as the son of a traitor. I am applying for membership. Denied. Your blood is black. He reapplied. Denied again and again. 9 rejections. Why keep begging them? They threw you in a cave. They killed your sister. You don't understand. Without the party, I'm just a man in a cave. With it, I am the state. Finally, on his 10th attempt in 1974, the local party branch gave in. Xi was 21. He had spent 7 years in the dirt, and he was finally stepping out of the cave. Meanwhile, the colossal figure of Mao Zedong was fading. In 1976, he died, and the chaos of the Cultural Revolution died with him. The power struggle was instant. The radical Gang of Four tried to hold on to Mao's madness, but they were no match for the veterans who had survived the purges. Arrest them. The revolution is over. You're traitors to Mao. Mao is a statue now. We have a country to run. Deng Xiaoping took the lead. He was a pragmatist who famously said, "It doesn't matter if a cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice." He opened China to the world, creating special economic zones and inviting capitalism, which the party had spent decades fighting. This new era also meant rehabilitation for those who had been persecuted. Xi Zhongxun was released from prison. Eventually, he became a senior leader again, even helping to establish the Shenzhen Special Economic Zone. The Xi family was back, and young Xi Jinping was finally returning to Beijing. But he wasn't the same boy who left, and the party was about to learn what 7 years in a cave had taught him. Xi Jinping could have coasted on his family connections. Many princelings, children of senior officials, did exactly that, using their fathers' names to skip straight to powerful positions. But Xi chose a different path. He finished his studies in chemical engineering at Tsinghua University and then made a move that shocked his peers. Instead of staying in the comforts of Beijing, he requested a transfer to Chengding County, a backwater agricultural region in Hebei Province. Chengding? It's a rundown county, Xi. It's beneath you. No post is beneath the party. It's an opportunity to prove I can lead. Or an opportunity to be forgotten? I won't be. And he wasn't. For 3 years, Xi played the role of the humble administrator, fixing local disputes and hitting agricultural quotas. Then, in 1985, he moved to the coastal province of Fujian. He would stay there for 17 years, grinding upward, one rung at a time. During this period, Xi made a masterstroke of political branding. In 1987, he married Peng Liyuan. She wasn't a politician, she was a superstar folk singer and a household name across China. At the time, she was far more famous than him. The marriage did something crucial. It made Xi relatable. He was no longer just the son of a disgraced official or a quiet bureaucrat. He was the husband of China's sweetheart. The optics were perfect. He cultivated an image as a clean, anti-corruption crusader, wrote a weekly newspaper column, personal, carefully crafted. But in April 1989, the gray life of a provincial official was shattered by a national crisis. Student-led protests erupted in Tiananmen Square. What started as mourning for a reformist leader exploded into a massive pro-democracy movement. They demanded freedom of speech, freedom of the press, an end to corruption. For weeks, the world watched. The party elite in Beijing were paralyzed. Some wanted dialogue, others wanted blood. They chose blood. On the night of June 3rd to 4th, 1989, the People's Liberation Army rolled into the heart of Beijing. They're shooting. The army is firing on us. Stay in your homes. This is for the stability of the nation. The exact death toll remains a state secret. Hundreds, possibly thousands. The tragedy left a permanent scar on China, but it left an even deeper lesson for every official watching. The party's survival trumps everything. Democracy, human rights, and individual lives are secondary to the stability of the regime. Where was Xi Jinping during the massacre? 1,200 miles away in Fujian? His phone rang off the hook. Other officials calling, panicking, asking which side to take. Xi said nothing, made no statements, took no position. He just kept working. It was brilliant, because when the dust settled and the purges began, Xi's name wasn't on anyone's list. He was too quiet to be a threat, too boring to be blamed. This became Xi's signature. Stay quiet during the storm. Never stick your neck out until you know which way the wind is blowing. By 2002, he was promoted to Zhejiang Province, one of China's economic engines. He visited every single county, promoted the Zhejiang model of private enterprise, built a national profile, but he did it as the safe candidate, the man who wouldn't rock the boat. Then came the final audition, Shanghai, 2007. The city's party chief had just been purged for corruption. Shanghai was in chaos. The leadership in Beijing needed a clean pair of hands to stabilize the city before the next big power transition. Most officials saw the job as a suicide mission. Xi saw it as a throne. He served only 7 months in Shanghai, but it was enough. He proved he could handle a crisis without making enemies. In late 2007, Xi was promoted to the Politburo Standing Committee, the inner circle of 9 men who rule 1.4 billion people. He was now the Crown Prince, the presumed successor to President Hu Jintao. But history is full of princes who never wear the crown. And Xi had a rival who was his polar opposite, Bo Xilai. Bo was the party secretary of Chongqing. He was flashy, charismatic, and a populist who loved the spotlight. He brought back red culture, leading thousands in mass sing-alongs of Maoist anthems. We must revive the revolutionary spirit, return to the glory of Mao. He's making himself too visible. In this party, being visible is being a target. Behind the scenes, the 2 men were locked in a shadow war for the future of China. Bo wanted to leapfrog Xi. The party was splitting into factions. Then, in February 2012, Bo Xilai's world imploded. Bo Xilai's right-hand man, Wang Lijun, the police chief of Chongqing, fled to a U.S. consulate in a panic. He stayed for 24 hours, telling a story that seemed like a thriller novel. Bo Xilai's wife had allegedly murdered a British businessman named Neil Haywood with cyanide after a business dispute. The scandal was a nuclear bomb in Chinese politics. Bo Xilai was stripped of his power overnight. His wife was arrested. Bo himself was eventually sentenced to life in prison. Bo forgot the unwritten rule of the CCP. What's that? Never outshine the next emperor. In November 2012, with his greatest rival behind bars, Xi Jinping officially became General Secretary. The world saw a calm, smiling bureaucrat talking about the China dream. The Chinese people deserve a better life. We will fight corruption. We will restore China's rightful place in the world. To the world, he sounded reasonable. To the party, he sounded safe. They had no idea they had just handed the keys to the most ambitious leader since Mao Zedong. The purge was about to begin. He wasted no time. Within weeks of taking power, he launched the most extensive anti-corruption campaign in the party's history. It was a hurricane that swept through every level of the Chinese government. We will take down both tigers and flies. High-ranking generals and local clerks, no one is untouchable. The numbers were staggering. Since 2012, over 4.7 million officials have been investigated. Thousands were imprisoned, and some were executed. Curiously, many of the fallen tigers just happened to be Xi's most powerful political rivals. Critics called it a purge. Xi called it justice. Either way, it worked. The public loved seeing the untouchable elites fall, and as their heads rolled, Xi's power soared. He began centralizing power in ways not seen since the days of Mao. He created new leading groups for everything from the economy to the internet, appointing himself chair of every single one. In 2017, he did what only Mao had done before. He had his own ideology, Xi Jinping thought, written into the party constitution while he was still alive. Isn't this a bit much? We were supposed to be moving away from the cult of personality. China faces great challenges unseen in a century: a slowing economy, an environmental crisis, and a deepening rivalry with the United States. Only a strong core can navigate these storms. He had a point, but his solution was always the same: more control. In 2018, he dropped the hammer. He removed the two-term limit for the presidency. This was the final safeguard Deng Xiaoping had installed to prevent another lifelong dictatorship. By removing it, Xi Jinping officially became China's new emperor. He turned China into the world's most advanced surveillance state. Using facial recognition, AI, and a social credit system, the party gained the ability to track the movement and the thoughts of 1.4 billion people. In the western region of Xinjiang, this control took a dark turn. The government detained up to 1 million Uyghur Muslims in what it called vocational training centers. Satellite images showed high walls and barbed wire. The rest of the world called them concentration camps. On the international stage, the quiet bureaucrat was gone. He launched the Belt and Road Initiative, a $1 trillion infrastructure project spanning the globe. It brought roads and ports to developing nations, but it also brought debt-trap diplomacy. He pushed China's borders outward, dredging the South China Sea to turn tiny reefs into massive military fortresses. He turned his sights toward Taiwan, making it clear that reunification was no longer a dream, but an inevitability. And in Hong Kong, he finally snuffed out the flame of dissent, crushing the pro-democracy movement with a national security law that ended the city's autonomy overnight. Then came COVID-19. After an initial cover-up in Wuhan, Xi staked his entire reputation on a zero-COVID policy. For nearly 3 years, he imposed the most brutal lockdowns in history. We will persist, no matter the cost, as long as it takes. By 2022, the world had reopened, but China remained a prison of testing booths and digital health codes. The economy stalled. People began to snap. In November 2022, protests erupted across major cities. People flooded the streets holding blank white papers, a silent but powerful symbol of everything they weren't allowed to say. They weren't just asking for the end of lockdowns. They were shouting, "Step down, Xi Jinping." These were the largest protests since Tiananmen Square. And then something unexpected happened. Just weeks later, the government abruptly ended zero COVID. No transition plan, no explanation. It was just over. Critics said Xi had boxed himself into a corner. When the policy became a threat to his survival, he abandoned it overnight, proving once again that for Xi, the party's grip on power is the only thing that matters. Despite the stumble, his grip remains absolute. In October 2022, he secured an unprecedented third term. He filled the Politburo with loyalists, ensuring there is no one left to say no. At 72 years old, he is the undisputed master of China's destiny. So what is Xi Jinping's legacy? To his supporters, he is the visionary who restored China's pride and ended a century of humiliation. To his critics, he is an autocrat who destroyed decades of progress toward openness and threw the world into a new Cold War. But here is the undeniable truth. Xi Jinping survived the impossible. He went from a cave-dwelling teenager whose family was torn apart to the paramount leader of a superpower. He waited. He endured. He learned. And when his moment came, I am the core. I am the party. China is me.